growing up as kind of like a common Joe, for example, and then just like average people around, not many people really know entirely like the role of a councilman. So maybe see if like you want to explain the role of it and then kind of like what are the main functions are.
Sure. Most people, the only introduction they have is when they take civics in high school.
Yeah.
And then from then on, they really don't have any idea of what happens as far as the government goes, other than what they see on the news.
Yeah.
In the news nowadays, you really don't want to listen to the politics anyway.
Yeah.
So, the government that's closest to the people is the one that's most responsive to the people. And of course, the closest government to the people is your city council.
Yeah. Be the local government, right?
Local government. So in like Lake Havasu City, where we're at, we have a city manager / mayor council type of government, which means that the city council, the mayor, including the mayor, there's 6 council members and the mayor, so there's 7 of us.
Okay.
We have 3 employees. We hire the city manager, the city attorney, and the city magistrate or the judge. So the city manager is who actually runs the day-to-day organization of the city of Lake Havasu.
Oh, okay.
It's his responsibility to make sure that everything that's going on in the city is exactly the way that the people of Lake Havasu and your elected officials want it to be.
Right.
So he is responsible for hiring the chief of police, who is then responsible for hiring all the police officers in the city. The city manager hires the fire chief, and then the fire chief hires all of the fire department personnel. City manager hires the public works department, and then he hires all the people that are needed in water and wastewater and all of that. The city manager hires parks and recreation director.
Yeah.
He hires the HR director. So all the different organizations that you see, planning and zoning and all those kinds of things, are all actually run by the city manager.
Okay.
The difference will be the city attorney's office, who has the job twofold. One is they are our legal representation in the city.
Right.
So anything that's where we need legal advice, that's what our city attorney's office does. Well, they also have another side, which is the prosecuting side. That was easy for me to say, and I was a policeman. So they prosecute misdemeanors that occur in the city of Lake Havasu.
Okay.
So if it's a felony, it gets kicked up to the county attorney's office, but the misdemeanors that occur within the city limits of Lake Havasu City are prosecuted by our city attorney's office. And then the council and the mayor also hire our magistrate or our judge, and he runs our court system. Okay. So like for right now, you hear, if you watch the news, we're building a courthouse. Oh. So for the last, Lake Havasu is 50 years old. When you look at the last 50 years, we have leased space and shared space through consolidated courts at our county courthouse. And the county owns that building. The county runs that building, and we lease space from them.
Oh, okay.
Right now, we lease 1 courtroom, and we need more courtrooms than that. And the county deconsolidated with the city, so we no longer have a consolidated court, but we still lease their space. So it's kind of like we got divorced, but we still live in the same house.
Oh, okay.
And they want us to move out.
And now you're in the process of building your own.
So we had to come up with our own. We did some work on it. It looked like it was probably going to cost us about $7 million to build a courthouse. It's expensive to build buildings, right? And you have to remember, when the government's involved, everything has to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
Everything has to be ADA compliant. The public has to be able to access the different locations that they need to. And a courthouse, of course, has its own special needs, right? Because you have people that are charged with a crime that are going to be there, and you need jury deliberation rooms, those kinds of things.
Right.
So we had the land available right here. We're in City Hall right now. We had the right next to the police department. We had the land available where we could build. And while we were looking at that, there was a building right next door that came up for sale.
Oh, really?
And so we looked at buying that building. It was going to cost $5 million. We didn't think it was really worth that, but another bidder outbid us and got that building.
Oh, wow.
But the building right next door to that, when those people found out that we were interested in looking at a building and they were getting ready to close their business, they were able to sell us the building. So we got the building for $3 million.
Oh, wow.
So now we have to do some tenant improvements and that kind of stuff. But we'll be saving the taxpayers millions of dollars. We'll have a courthouse that's right here adjacent to City Hall. And we're doing it, I don't want to say on the cheap, but a lot less expensive than building from the ground up.
Yeah.
So those are the responsibilities that we have as far as personnel goes. And then what the council does is we establish policy.
Okay.
We set the budget. The city manager comes to us with the budget. He works with his entire staff, and we have an outstanding staff here. And they put together what they think the fiscal needs are going to be for the next year.
Okay.
And that comes to the council, and then we set the budget based on their recommendations and the amount of money that we have that's coming in. So if you watch the news at all, you see that last month we actually ratified our budget. Actually, it was June. We're in August now. It's going so fast.
Yeah.
In June, we ratified our budget for this next year, and we are not raising taxes. We're not borrowing any money, and we've balanced our budget,
Nice.
which is very, to me, important. I'm very conservative when it comes to our fiscal needs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things, needs versus wants. Wants are always nice, but when you're using taxpayer dollars, it comes down to needs.
Yeah.
So, and if we have extra money to handle wants, well, then we need to give it back to the taxpayers and not spend it. So,
Yeah.
we need to run a tight ship, and we do here. So I'm very pleased with that. So that's basically what we do. We set policy, we set the budgets, and then we let the city staff do the job that they're required to do to run the city.
Right.
And then, of course, we are the liaison between the citizenry and the staff. So when people have issues and they're not happy with the way things are going, or they just don't know who to call, they'll call one of us,
Okay.
which is fine. That's what I was elected to do. My cell phone number, you called me on my cell phone. Unfortunately, I was in an area that I didn't have cell service. I was on vacation, but my cell phone number was published in the paper this morning. It's in the paper every Sunday. It's on the city website. It's on my business cards, because being elected here in Lake Havasu, if the people can't tell me what they need or what they want, if they can't get a hold of me. So
Yeah.
it's very important for me. So
Okay.
that's, in a nutshell, that's kind of what we do.
Okay. That's very interesting, because I do a lot of my own self-education, and because politics, government, and everything, as well as entire like history, like what we were talking about before, a lot of that really interests me. And so on my off time, I was actually studying American government. It was talking about like the functionings on local level, then state, federal. And so it's very interesting to hear a lot of those same things in regards to like the functions of the councilman, the mitigation of tasks like the city manager, as well as municipal courts and things like that. So it's very interesting.
Sure. And then something to remember too is when you get into the state, even county level, state level, federal level, you have a lot of partisan politics, where you have a party that you belong to. We all have our own personal preferences and the parties that we belong to. But in Lake Havasu, we don't have districts, and we're not party centric.
Okay.
We actually represent all the people of Lake Havasu, so we are nonpartisan positions. So today, I may be helping somebody who identifies as a Republican. This afternoon, it could be a Democrat,
Right.
or an independent, or a Green Party, or somebody that doesn't want to be affiliated with a political subdivision at all.
Right.
We represent all the people of the city at all times.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, because it's like, especially nowadays, you're seeing a greater issue of partisanship and the inability to compromise between the two differing sides. So that's, especially for like a small town like this, that's a very good thing, because it's able to actually show, like based off of seeing everything going on, like how news is going, everything like that, that shows a lot more personal connection without so much like or I wouldn't say subliminal, but like double thinking, maybe something behind the lines, things like that. So that's really good, because you're not having to constantly go through the conflict itself of going through an argument in order to get the goals done.
Sure, and you have to listen to both sides.
Exactly.
So when you aren't willing to listen to the other person, you can't come to a compromise. It takes an argument to have a solution. If we all thought the same way, or we all had all the solutions, we would just be following each other around.
Yeah.
And that's not what this country's about. It's about different ideas and different ways of doing things. And you have to be willing to listen to both sides. Mm-hmm. You know, you can't really enjoy the sunshine we have here if we don't have rain once in a while. You know what I mean? You can't really enjoy how much sunshine we have unless you just have a torrential downpour, or the life that we have. If you don't have to experience death once in a while, you don't really appreciate the life that has been given to us.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, not everybody's wrong all the time, and not everybody's right all the time.
Yeah, it's always kind of that gray area where you got to have the conversation to figure that out.
You have to have the conversation. You know, even a broken clock is right twice a day.
Yeah. And that was something that the ASU professor that I interviewed, we talked a lot about, just the whole issue with partisanship that's going on, and then just the importance of having constructive conversation. Because my biggest advocacy for my podcast is the ability to have that conversation, regardless of what the issue is. It's in order to actually find the solution, you got to be able to have the conversation in order to figure out. And then if you try to eliminate any conversation around it, then how can you actually find a solution? And especially too, if you're completely isolating one side and not actually looking at things.
You're absolutely correct.
Yeah. And it was something that I always think about when that I refer back to the American government textbook that I read is let's see. A failing democracy occurs when we have the inability to have proper and productive conversation without a type of government or societal force imposing or oppressing our thought and way of life.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, it's supposed to be we the people telling the government what to do.
Yeah.
Not the other way around.
Exactly. And it was funny too, because like the textbook, it was breaking down, especially when it was discussing the position of presidency. It was talking about how the founding fathers, John Hancock, Thomas Jefferson, and all of them of the like, when they initially created the executive branch for presidency, they didn't create it with the intent of the president having this much authority and power, because it was mostly supposed to rely in regards to Congress and what their functions and roles are. But then as like time goes on, you saw the public opinion shift where it's not a question of whether or not they have the authority, but what they're going to do about it.
Sure. We have 3 branches of government for a reason.
Yeah.
If you disagree with one, that gives you 2 others.
Exactly. The checks and balances.
Checks and balances. Absolutely.